In a small Igbo village deep in the heart of Nigeria, there lived a poor woodcutter named Kelechi. He worked tirelessly every day, cutting wood to provide for his family. His life was simple but filled with hard work. One day, while walking through the forest, he came across a massive tree with glowing leaves. It seemed magical, unlike any tree he had ever seen before. Curiosity took over, and Kelechi decided to approach the tree. As he touched its bark, the tree began to speak. "I am the tree of wishes," it said in a deep, echoing voice. "I can grant you 3 wishes, but be wise with your choices, for greed has a price." Kelechi was amazed but cautious. He wondered what to wish for. Excited and overwhelmed, Kelechi rushed home to tell his wife, Neka, about the magical tree. Neka, though wise and kind-hearted, warned her husband not to be hasty. "We must be content with what we have," she advised. But Kelechi's thoughts were already racing with possibilities. He began dreaming of wealth and power that could change their lives forever. The next day, Kelechi returned to the tree. With a racing heart, he made his first wish. "I wish to be the richest man in the village," he declared. Instantly, gold coins appeared at his feet, and his shabby clothes turned into fine silk. Kelechi couldn't believe his eyes. He rushed back home to show Neka the treasure, but she looked worried. Neka knew that wealth could bring more problems than happiness. She reminded Kelechi, "Riches alone cannot fill an empty heart." But Kelechi was too excited to listen. Soon the villagers noticed his new riches, and some began to grow jealous. Friends turned into strangers, and even his family started to distance themselves from him. Kelechi's heart grew heavy. One evening, Kelechi sat by the fire, staring at his gold. He had all the riches he could ever want, but something was missing. The laughter of his children, the warmth of his wife, everything seemed distant now. He realized that with wealth came loneliness. Still, Kelechi thought one more wish could fix everything. He returned to the tree the next morning. "I wish to be the most powerful man in the land," Kelechi exclaimed to the tree. In an instant, he became a king, with a grand palace and an army at his command. His name echoed across the village and people bowed before him. But with power came great responsibility, and the more he ruled, the more isolated he felt. As king, Kelechi had to make difficult decisions. He became paranoid, afraid that someone might try to steal his throne. Old friends no longer visited, and even Neka felt like a stranger. Though he had power and wealth, Kelechi felt trapped in his own palace. Every night he sat alone, thinking about the simple life he once had as a woodcutter. Weeks passed and Kelechi's heart grew heavy with regret. He realized that all his wishes had brought him nothing but sorrow. Though he had everything he once dreamed of, he had lost the joy of life. His children's laughter, his wife's warm smile, and the peace of his village seemed like distant memories. Kelechi knew he had made a mistake. Desperate to find happiness again, Kelechi returned to the tree for the last time. "I've made terrible choices," he admitted. "For my final wish, I want to be a poor woodcutter again, just as I was before." The tree remained silent for a moment, then its deep voice echoed, "Your wish is granted, but remember, happiness comes from within." In a flash, Kelechi's fine clothes disappeared, and the palace around him vanished. He found himself back in his humble home, dressed in simple rags. His family was by his side, and the village seemed just as it had before. Though he was poor again, Kelechi felt a sense of relief and peace in his heart. He realized he had everything he needed. Neka embraced Kelechi, her eyes filled with understanding. "I told you, my husband, that wealth and power cannot buy happiness," she said softly. Kelechi nodded, grateful for her wisdom. He now understood that true joy came from love, family, and contentment, not from riches or power. The simple life he once took for granted was now his greatest treasure. Word spread through the village about Kelechi's strange journey. People were curious but also cautious. Some thought Kelechi had lost his mind, while others believed he had gained wisdom beyond measure. But Kelechi no longer cared about what others thought. He was at peace, happy with his simple life as a woodcutter, and content with the love of his family. Kelechi returned to the forest each day, cutting wood just as he had before. The villagers noticed a change in him. He smiled more, laughed often, and always had time to help others. Though he had nothing to offer in material wealth, his heart was full, and people were drawn to his newfound joy. Kelechi had become a beacon of happiness in the village. As the years passed, Kelechi continued to live a simple life. He never spoke of the magical tree again, and he never wished for more than what he had. His children grew up, learned from his experiences, and carried his lessons of contentment with them. Kelechi had found the true meaning of happiness, and his story became a legend in the village. The village elders would often tell Kelechi's story to the young children. "Do not be greedy," they would say. "Greed can only bring sorrow. Be content with what you have, for true happiness lies in the heart." The children listened, their eyes wide with wonder, and Kelechi's tale became a moral lesson for generations to come. One day, an ambitious young man came to Kelechi, asking for advice. "I want to be rich and powerful," the young man said. "What should I do?" Kelechi smiled and patted the young man on the shoulder. "Be careful what you wish for, my son," he replied. "Riches and power are not the path to happiness. Learn from my story and choose wisely." The young man left Kelechi's home deep in thought. He had always believed that wealth and power were the keys to success. But Kelechi's words echoed in his mind, and he began to question his desires. Perhaps, he thought, happiness was something much simpler. Perhaps it was found in the love of family, the joy of hard work, and the peace of contentment. Kelechi's life became a symbol of wisdom in the village. People came from far and wide to hear his story and learn from his experiences. He never boasted about his past riches or power, but instead shared the simple truth. Happiness comes from within, not from what we possess. His words touched many hearts, and his story spread beyond the village. As Kelechi grew older, he remained humble and content. He had no desire for wealth or power, for he had found something far greater, peace of mind. His story continued to inspire others, and the village thrived on the values of kindness, generosity, and contentment. Kelechi's life became a guiding light, showing others the way to true happiness. The magical tree remained in the forest, untouched and silent. No one dared to approach it, for they knew the dangers of greed. The tree had granted wishes before, but it also taught lessons to those who sought its power. The villagers respected the tree, knowing that some things in life were better left undisturbed. Kelechi often walked through the forest, passing by the tree but never stopping. He would glance at its glowing leaves and smile, remembering the lessons it had taught him. The tree had changed his life, but not in the way he had expected. It had shown him that true happiness could not be wished for. It had to be earned through love, hard work, and contentment. In time, Kelechi's children grew into adults, each of them carrying the lessons of their father. They built families of their own, teaching their children the importance of contentment and gratitude. Kelechi watched with pride as his family grew, knowing that they would never make the same mistakes he had. The legacy of his story would live on for generations. As the years passed, Kelechi became known as the wise elder of the village. People sought his advice on all matters, from family to work to the meaning of life. He never tired of sharing his story, reminding others that greed leads to sorrow and contentment brings true happiness. His words resonated deeply, and he became a beloved figure in the community. When Kelechi finally passed away, the entire village mourned the loss of their wise elder. But his story lived on, told and retold by the villagers who had learned from his experiences. The legend of Kelechi, the poor woodcutter who found happiness through contentment,